We're kicking off with Raw, which saw the Judgment Day defeat Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens in the main event, and it seems the faction is on the same page. Post-match, Finn Balor and Damian Priest hugged in the ring in a clear sign of camaraderie, but things were far from peaceful backstage after the match. PW Insider reports that there was an altercation between the Judgment Day and the three babyfaces backstage, but it did not lead to physical violence. These backstage issues were reportedly over several spots in the match, which some of the superstars found clunky and simply not as good as it should have been. The two sources within WWE said that last-minute changes to the match played a factor in these issues unfolding backstage, with changes being made as late as during the ring entrances for the bout. WWE fans won't have to worry about this being another brawl-out situation like in AEW though, as all sources spoken to have played down the idea that there was any violence during the incident. One source instead chalked this situation up to a difference of opinion, and with WWE's business booming right now, everyone wants to make sure they do their part to keep the momentum going. In an update, Fightful Select revealed that Kevin Owens left almost immediately after the match as he had prior obligations, and that Rollins got cracked pretty hard during the bout. This backstage altercation, as unfortunate as it may be, is not expected to be a problem going forward, so don't expect anything like what AEW is having to do with CM Punk and the Elite. The outcome of the match did not go as some in the contest had hoped, but this was just a night where things didn't go as planned, and hopefully this won't be a recurring problem from here on. It was at Money in the Bank that Drew McIntyre returned to WWE programming after being missing from TV since his Intercontinental title match at WrestleMania. During his absence, fans wondered if they'd ever see Drew on TV again, and now, not only is he back, but fans will be seeing plenty of the Scottish Warrior. While McIntyre will miss next week's Raw, that's for a very good reason, as it's been confirmed that he will be starring in an action film titled The Killer's Game. Based off the 1997 novel by Jay Bonanzinga, McIntyre will be a part of a cast including Ice Cube and former WWE World Champion Dave Bautista. The book tells the story of an assassin who puts a hit on himself when he learns of a terminal illness, but after learning he was misdiagnosed, must defend himself and his girlfriend from a bunch of killers. We know that Batista will play the lead, though Drew's role is unclear. And would you like to see McIntyre take on more acting roles? Sound off in the comments. From the moment Carlito appeared at Backlash, rumors circulated of a fully fledged WWE return, and last month, the former US champion was telling everyone who'd listen it was happening. It was reported for some time that Carlito would be making his return on last week's SmackDown in MSG, which obviously didn't happen, so what is going on with Mr. Caribbean Cool? Sources who spoke to PW Insider have revealed that Carlito had traveled to the same region as WWE last weekend, and he was sighted in Pittsburgh on Sunday in a sign of his return. Pittsburgh is, after all, where WWE's medical team is primarily located, but there's another reason why he didn't return at the Garden last Friday night. The decision to exclude Carlito's return on SmackDown was reportedly influenced by the Bloodline's prominent storyline, which would have overshadowed his comeback. Carlito will return to TV when the time is right, and will be part of the LWO. And what do you think of this plan for the veteran? Sound off in the comments down below. On last week's SmackDown, Jey Uso challenged Roman Reigns to a Universal title match at SummerSlam, and while the bout isn't official yet, fans can expect just that in due time. As over as Jey is right now, very few people expect him to be the one to dethrone the Tribal Chief, but even in defeat, Jey could cause a major rift in the Bloodline. According to sources within WWE, one plan being considered is for Jey to build momentum by getting a win over Solo Sikoa, and it'll be Reigns who inadvertently costs Solo the match. That'll kickstart the eventual split between Reigns and Sikoa, culminating in a premium live event match for later this year, or perhaps save it for next year's Royal Rumble show. The Bloodline saga has been praised by fans for years now, and it's not hard to see why. And what do you make to these plans as we get closer and closer to SummerSlam? When Bobby Lashley and Bray Wyatt began feuding after Elimination Chamber, a match at WrestleMania seemed certain until Wyatt's illness and removal from TV killed those plans. At WrestleMania, Lashley appeared in a brief segment and last competed on SmackDown in May, where he competed in the World Heavyweight Championship tournament. Given that Lashley was bust open badly during his two tournament matches, some speculated that this is why he hasn't been around, but that isn't the case at all. After all, Lashley has since returned to action, albeit exclusively at WWE live events, and according to sources, WWE haven't given up on the Lashley-Wyatt feud. The idea backstage is that this feud can make serious money if handled correctly, and WWE won't bring Lashley back to TV until Wyatt is able to return. With the latest reports saying Wyatt still can't come back, it may be some time before we see the Almighty again. But for now, WWE is okay with keeping the former WWE champion off of TV. It's safe to say that Wyatt's return to WWE has not gone as anyone had planned, and a lot of the buzz he had when he came back in is well and truly gone. One of the few highlights of Wyatt's return was when he and The Undertaker shared the ring during the 30th anniversary of Monday Night Raw, and now the Phenom has weighed in on the Wyatt situation. While speaking to the Metro, the Phenom was asked about his thoughts on Bray and suggested a change of character for the former Universal Champion. He said, "They need to back Bray's character up to the original character, get away from... They've kind of got themselves booked into a situation where it's kind of difficult for him to have matches. I think the original Wyatt family Bray, that's the money. I got to work with Bray at Mania the year after I got concussed in the Brock match. I worked with Bray, I think a lot of him, and I like what he's doing. I think they just have to figure out how to... They need to back it up, I think. His promos, and then his ability to work, he's an incredible worker, but he's not getting the opportunity to do it. I hope the best for him. I really do think a lot of him. We'll see what happens there." The dead man has made it clear on numerous occasions that he is a massive fan of Wyatt and is always interested in what he does on TV, despite WWE's stop-start booking with Bray. It'll be Triple H, or should we say Vince McMahon's decision as to what happens with Wyatt's character, but do you agree with the Phenom? Let us know in the comments down below. NXT news now, as Ilya Dragunov became the #1 contender for the NXT title this week with a monumental victory over two-time former NXT champion Bron Breakker. With Breakker not in line for a title shot, it seems there's nothing left for him in NXT, and a main roster call-up may be imminent. WWE has had plans to call up Breakker in place for some time, and now seems like as good a time as any, so don't be surprised if we soon see Bron on Raw or SmackDown. NXT also saw the Judgment Day invade the gold brand as Finn Balor and Damian Priest defeated Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams on this week's show. Not only did the main roster team win, but Balor was able to pin the reigning NXT champion, marking the second time in less than a month that Balor has bested Hayes. This could be a sign of things to come, as reports from within WWE indicate that there have been talks of Hayes losing the NXT title to Dragunov at the Great American Bash, and being called up to the main roster. Hayes would then feud with the Judgment Day on Raw, and it's being discussed that he could form an alliance with Seth Rollins, who has had his own issues with the faction. With Damian Priest as Mr. Money in the Bank, the World Heavyweight Champion could do with some backup, and the idea backstage is putting Hayes in this angle for his Raw debut will be an immediate sign of big things for him. Watching Rollins and Hayes take it to the Judgment Day would be a treat for fans, and we'll hopefully get a clearer picture after this year's Great American Bash. In 2018, Big Cass was released from WWE despite at the time being part of a prominent feud with the recently unretired Daniel Bryan. At the time, it was reported that Cass was released after going off script during a segment with a little person, but that's only half the story. According to a WWE source who spoke to Wrestling News, going off script was a factor in Cass's release, but it was an incident backstage that sealed his fate. The source disclosed that backstage, Cass had turned hostile when attempting to reconcile with ex-girlfriend Carmella, and when she wanted to leave, grabbed her hand and forced her to sit. This is what led to other superstars, including Eric Rowan and the Usos, restraining Cass to defuse the situation, and this proved too much for the company. Cass, who already had heat for a reported bad attitude during a European tour, was let go personally by Vince McMahon, and in the years since, Cass has never returned. After a rough few years, Cass has now found a place for himself as Big Bill in AEW, but with the full story of his WWE exit, don't expect him to be welcomed back. Right now, few stars in WWE are more over than LA Knight, but it's safe to say that not everybody is a fan of the former Max Dupree. During a recent episode of his Click This podcast, Kevin Nash hit out at Knight, calling his character and mannerisms a clear ripoff of The Rock, sparking some controversy with fans online. On his most recent episode, Nash addressed the controversy, and while he didn't mean Knight any harm, he's not going to back down from how he feels. He said, "I'm not gonna apologize. I think it's a blatant ripoff, but I didn't mean any harm." Later on, Nash again doubled down on the idea that Knight is ripping off the greats of the past and suggested that if he wasn't doing that, he probably wouldn't be over right now, adding, "There's so many people who agree that LA is doing The Rock Austin. I mean, the guy's been in the business for like 10 years. Why didn't he get over anywhere else? If you're not over in 3 years, it's probably just not gonna happen." While Knight didn't win Money in the Bank, WWE is well aware of how popular he is right now, and big things are expected in the future. Whether those big things include a world title run, who's to say, but Kevin Nash isn't impressed by what he's seeing, which, according to Nash, he saw decades earlier from Dwayne Johnson. And we're ending today with AEW Collision, as last week's show delivered the monumental match between Samoa Joe and CM Punk 18 years after their feud in ROH, and this recent match certainly delivered. Collision saw an increase from the previous week with 580,000 fans, and Sean Ross Sapp reports that the Punk vs. Joe match saw a significant bump in the quarter-hour ratings. With Punk getting the win, he'll now face Ricky Starks this week to crown the winner of the Owen Hart Foundation Men's Tournament. And who do you hope to see get the win?